from Tiedoro Wealth that will be introducing Adam DeMatteo, who's going to be doing the presentation. So, Adam, or Alex, I should say, please take it away.
Robin, and thank you very much for that. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. It shows your continued commitment to your personal financial success. And thank you very much for having us be a part of that journey. In continuance of the series of financial awareness and financial education, this particular presentation is about your retirement. We have what, in my opinion, is an industry expert, Adam DeMatteo. He's been working for Prudential for the last 18 years, but he's not going to be talking about insurance or products. He's going to be talking about you and your retirement and some of the changes that have been taking place in the world of retirement over the last couple of years with the passage of the Secure Act. Adam is a regional vice president and retirement strategist with Prudential, and he covers independent financial advisors in Northern California and Nevada. And he essentially does a great job of dedicating his efforts to helping financial professionals and their clients plan for retirement, which is why I've asked him to join us on this call. He joined Prudential in 2007. He's been there 18 years, and he really has become a go-to person when it comes down to all things retirement. He graduated from Johnson and Wales University with a degree in financial services management. Do not hold that against him. And he lives in Granite Bay with his wife and kids, and he is a diehard Sacramento Kings game fan. So, with that said, I'm going to pass the baton over to Adam DiMatteo. Adam, take it away.
Hopefully y'all can hear me now. Alex, give me a thumbs
Yes,
up. Hear me.
thumbs
Awesome.
up.
Thank you for the introduction. Don't hold it against me. I know there's a lot of Bay Area folks here. It's always feel like cute when I say I'm a Sacramento Kings fan because no one really takes that seriously. But happy to be here. Happy to do this. And what Alex said in summary, what do? I travel around meeting with the best financial advisors, coaching them on these ideas. But perhaps my favorite thing to do is this, is educating the end consumer about all things retirement. And it doesn't stop with IRAs. It doesn't stop with 401ks. I want to grow a big pile of money. And there's going to be some challenges and speed bumps along the way, but how do I address it? What do I do? So we're going to make this fun. Let's make this interactive. You'll see a series of polling questions along the way, making sure you're engaged. But we do want you to ask some questions. Something doesn't make sense, ask away, please. We're here to do that for you. We are going to make this as fun as humanly possible throughout today. And we're going to talk about not just the markets, and we'll go through the more formal agenda in a minute, but I do want to hit you right off the bat with a polling question. And hopefully this will pop up on your screen in a second. On a scale of 1 to 5, how prepared do you feel for your retirement? So hopefully I see some notes in the chat there popping up on the screen. Love it. I see that, wow, roaring in. That was pretty quick. And again, I want you to think more holistically, like whether you're 25, 75, doesn't matter. Wherever you are on your retirement journey, that's the truth, right? That's exactly where you are, right? That is your reality at this moment in time. So another second or so, let this, I'm seeing probably similar results to you, Alex and team, where we're right in the middle. And
Yeah.
I think that gives me a good idea for the majority of the folks that are on the call, meaning we've started saving. We're not quite there yet, and no one's perfect, right? Because otherwise we wouldn't still be working, right? We'd all be Powerball winners. So that is pretty awesome. I'm going to continue forward. And the reason why we start with this question, because the journeys looked quite different. If I were to have a conversation with your parents, with your grandparents, their retirement plan was unbelievably different than the way yours is today. And here's why. You look at the pyramid here, and what this looks like is at the very bottom, the foundation of everyone's retirement 30 plus years ago, you had a pension, right? And in fact, there's 175,000 active here's the key phrase here, fully funded, active and fully funded pensions in the United States. You never had a day that went by where you heard anything about the concern in Social Security. But that's actually why no one needed to save, right? Financial advisors didn't have conversations about 401ks and IRA rollovers in the late 1980s because they didn't have to save. So less than 1% of household net worth was geared towards retirement. And if I structure this like a three-legged stool of retirement, 2/3 of your income was covered. You're good. That's changed significantly. And the reason why it's changed so much is the onus is on you. We went from 175,000 pensions down to 25,000 active in the United States. Here's the real problem. Half of those are fully funded. So, okay, one of those legs on the stool is getting wobbly. Social Security isn't one of the primary sources of income. You can't go a day without hearing about the insolvency issues of it. But the onus is on us, right? It's up to us to build up that nest egg. We want to climb up that proverbial retirement mountain as quick as possible. So we have to use these types of workshops. We have to leverage the expertise of industry experts because I need to save. So now we're looking at more than 51% of household net worth is focused on retirement. Okay, that's awesome, but when I get my retirement statement in, what do I see, right? What am I invested in? So I want to ask you this question, folks. Can we prompt for the next one here? And the reason why I want to prompt for this one is you hear a lot of news. You probably have a ticker on your phone you didn't even know you had. And it's leveraging the stock market. And I want to ask you the question, what is the S&P 500? And the reason why I ask this question is for this simple answer. The majority of your retirement accounts is in what's called large cap stocks. I don't have to know anything about you to know you are invested in Amazon, Netflix, Google, Meta, right? You're looking at Tesla. You're looking at the best 500 companies where? Right here in the United States. And the beauty of that design, whether you like it or not, is it's an index that is trackable over time. And if you remember the company Kodak was the darling of the S&P 500 for decades, but they didn't evolve and they were kicked out. So it's a rapidly evolving index, and it not only changes, but it changes over the course of time. So I mention that because if I look at large cap stocks and different investments, they're mainly allocated in some of the 500 best companies right here in the United States. So I always like to point out what it is that we own. And as you see the track record of it, it's not hard to understand. Obviously, there's some numbers here, but it goes up over time. And to what degree, it depends on which side of the ledger we're on. And I usually use this as perspective, right? Where do we feel that we're headed for next? Because generally, yes, our 401k statements, our retirement statements are going to go up over time. But here's how I digest this. If I look on the right-hand side of my screen, you see that 3 out of every 4 years, when the stock market or the S&P 500 is up, it's not up 10%. In fact, the average up year, think of this as a binary system. It's going to be 1 or 0, right? It's going to be up or down. If it's going to be up, the average positive return is 20%. A little bit different because I feel like we all have recency bias. And for those that have been investing for a long time, years like 2008 hurt. Although not that long ago, we still remember. We remember 2001. We remember 2002, what happened in the market. But the 1 out of every 4 years, when our portfolios are down, in fact, the average negative year is not down 30, is not down 20. The average bad year is down about 12%. And there's only been nearly 6 times in history, and I'm going over 85 years of data, where the S&P has actually lost 15% or more, right? It is very uncommon for that to happen. The so what to that is when that does happen, I go to the right side of the ledger because the following year it's up more than 24%, right? That is the recovery, that is the rebound. So it's a daunting task to think about retirement, but when you have a plan in place with the right sort of portfolio construction, you're in a pretty good spot. And the question I get the most is, I've been hearing we're at all-time highs. We are over-leveraged by some of the top companies that make up the S&P 500. And you're not wrong, right? You're not wrong. In fact, this is some, not just the Magnificent Seven, but there are just a handful of companies that do make up the market cap and the majority of the S&P. And those names should change over time. They're supposed to change over time. To what degree, we don't know, but NVIDIA was certainly not a player in the late 80s, early 90s. They were nowhere to be found. So I do see this as an opportunity, of course, growth going forward, but a little bit different as we look at some of the market as it stands today for those Magnificent Seven earnings versus some of the top trading earnings in the early 2000s, right? They were reporting phenomenal stock yields without any price return, without any profits. So I do want to say, of course, this time's a little bit different for where we are in the leverage in the marketplace today, where we are in our portfolios. But this is where we want the conversation to start with Alex, with his team. We want you to bring these questions. We want to continue this conversation, not just here today, but how does our portfolios being affected by some of the concentration in the industry, how do we change that? How do we adjust that? And this is something that I have a habit of not just showing confusing information, but I promise you, I'm really good at making it simple. So you're going to see some dots on a chart, but I promise I'll make this very, very simple for you. This is how confident do we feel as a nation, as an economy, about what's happening in the stock market. Okay, so here's the barometer. If everyone can think for a moment what you were doing in April of 2020, right? You were lysoling packages. We were afraid to go to our mailbox. We were in our homes fighting over toilet paper, right? We all remember what April of 2020 was like. So I use that as a launching point because if you see the dot here on the right-hand side of your screen, that represents one of the lowest consumer sentiments that we had as an economy. Now, this chart, if you could see the dotted blue line, an easier way to read it, is everything below the line, we felt real bad about our economy. Everything above the line, we were in euphoria. We felt amazing about where we were at that moment in time. And I point out where you were in April of 2020 because this is where we are today in March of 2026. Right? There's always going to be geopolitical issues. I don't care what side of the political structure that we're on, there will always be geopolitical issues, okay? No matter what time frame we look at. But I use this for perspective because every time, unequivocally, we are below this dotted blue line, the following 12-month returns of the stock market, of the S&P, exceed 20%. That's why I was trying to coach everyone what I own, what I'm in, what do I see in the news and the headlines. Well, important to understand, okay, yes, this is how we feel, but I also want to highlight opportunity. I highlight opportunity because if we can prompt the next polling question, I'm curious, how important is retirement planning for you, for your family in this process? I love the critical, let's get this party started. Well done. Of course it's important. And again, regardless of age, there's different mile markers we're all going to be on. We need to know where to start. And I do think it is important, but I think if we don't know certain things, then we don't know what questions to ask, right? We might not know there's any issues until we start unraveling the plan, start trying to find opportunities, because we want to help you get up that retirement mountain and come down the other side. So love the question. Majority of the stats, we want to get this party started. That is fantastic. I do want to just, while we have the polling question up, I didn't see any questions in the chat. Make sure you all can see the slides. Any questions for me?
Yeah, that's what we understand that you guys.
Oh, say that again.
There is a question from Karen and Grog who asks where to invest in post-industrial age, AI, and de-dollarization.
Alex, do you want to take that one?
Well, I can. I mean, the reality is that, we are dealing with a bit of a paradigm shift with AI. I don't necessarily know if the dollar has fallen off its perch just yet, although it would appear that we're trying our darndest to do that. But the reality is that uh, we are seeing a significant shift in overall investments, and it appears that as Warren Buffett always said, find a trend and throw yourself in front of it. And you've answered your own question in a way by indicating AI, to a certain extent, software that goes with that, although that is something to be a little bit concerned about these days. And then, of course, you've got all the ancillaries in the AI build out, which appears to be just in its nascent days. So I think there's a lot of opportunity ahead. And while prices may be somewhat stretched and valuations may be somewhat questionable, it appears that the resistance is, or the general direction is to the upside in those fields.
Love it. Let's keep it going. All right. Thank you. I think one of the speed bumps that we can address, and we're not going to go through these in grave detail, but if any of this interests you, please reach out to us, our team, for further follow-up. But again, important to understand what are things that we can encounter. We're going to go over some contributions, a little bit on rollovers, distributions, does it make sense? On the kind of back end of it, why we take distributions, why we have to take distributions. I think the most important thing to talk about is naming beneficiaries and end with some Roth conversations. You will constantly see changes, adjustments to retirement plans. And one of the most recent ones, there was a 1.0 and a 2.0 with the Secure Act. And the Secure Act designed to change and provide some adjustments, but it provided some relief in giving some tax credit back for establishing a plan. Included, hey, we know that you have within your retirement plans the ability to add money, but if we do an auto enrollment, we're going to allow you to do a little bit more. Free withdrawal, we'll talk about a little bit more, but also the naming and changing of beneficiaries on distribution, we'll spend more time in a little bit. But these are the core items that we saw with the Secure Act from an update standpoint. From the most recent iteration was the pushing back of a required minimum distribution. So when you have pre-tax money and you have after-tax money. So we're namely referring to pre-tax money as qualified accounts, which is tax deferred. Whether you know that or not, your 401ks, your IRAs, those are tax deferred, meaning I don't pay taxes on any money now, but on the end, when I withdraw money out, I am going to pay taxes on some of the gains within the portfolio. Well, the government limits how much I could put in. And then on the back end, they make you start taking distributions out, right? What a wonderful strategy to have as much tax deferred money as possible because it grows to be a bigger pile. But at some point, the government's going to hold their hand out and say, hey, you got to start spending this. Because remember, the government doesn't want you to die with any qualified money left because, again, they want to tax all of it to you, right? They want to make sure you're paying for that. So what they did was they pushed back the RMD age, required minimum distribution age, to now 73. And for those born after 1960 to age 75, that was a significant change, right? That there was no adjustment on that for several decades. That was kind of the biggest iteration of that. Obviously, catch-up contributions were an important one, but limited. In fact, many clients that are already on a retirement plan did have to adjust for those RMDs and RMD planning. From a mistake standpoint is, honestly, a catch-up contribution is an important item, meaning we have the ability to add more dollars to our accounts. I think that's a big one. You still have the ability to add money after age 73. So you want to make sure you are setting up and creating those opportunities for you. And if not, talk to Alex and his team. Let them know this is what we're doing. This is what we can do. And if we're 50 and above, let's throw some more money in. Why not? That just helps us down the road to grow that pile a little bit bigger. So continuing on. Sorry.
There is a question in the chat.
There's
The
a
question in the chat is, what are the income limits for IRA contributions?
I could send that as a follow-up afterwards because that's age specific. Great question. That will absolutely be in the follow-up. In terms of yes, sir.
I have a comment that follows Andrew Aitken asks, the importance of a diversified portfolio, and international is definitely a big component of that. There's two things I want to sort of just say. Number one is that in your 401k, if you have one, make sure that you can max that out, because especially if there's an employer match to some degree, you want to make sure that you're putting the most amount that you possibly can into whatever 401k or deferred compensation plan that you have. And number two, just because you think that you are maybe getting older, and none of us really want to think that, do not necessarily become more conservative in your allocation, because the reality is that people are living longer and we need these funds to grow, similar to what that slide at the beginning of Adam's presentation was when he asked about the S&P 500. You really want to participate in, you want to take on a little bit more risk than what you think you ought to, only because you need that money to grow and keep to outpace inflation and to make sure that you've got the cash flow in your later years.
Sorry for skipping around the slides. I wanted to briefly show some of the contribution limits, but again, in our follow-up, we'll include more detail on that. So sorry for bouncing around. I know you saw the screens moving, but to answer a question briefly on the screen now, 7,500, 1,100 catch up, 15 older, but there's more to that, which we'll send out. Alex, do you want to hit on anything else?
Andrew asked a follow-up question. He says he's at the county and he has a 457B with no match, and that's unfortunate. But that does not mean that you must be conservative in your allocation, and that's my 2 cents on that without seeing the plan. Adam?
Awesome. Okay. I would need more information on that to opine on that a bit further. Let's see. What I'm looking at the chat here.
Oh, okay. So you see if there's 6 questions, it says.
Sorry. I'm trying to scroll through without touching the slides. Yep, sending income law. What is considered too much to be in? Good question. Alex, do you want to take that one offline from Renee? What is considered too much to tax deferred accounts, specifically 457 tax deferred accounts? I mean, that's always case by case.
That is a case by case, and it really depends on your current and future cash flow needs, as well as what your expected tax rate is, both your average and your marginal tax bracket. I have a question here from William. In terms of investments and potential gains you would have over a long horizon, how should someone who is younger think about I think it's IRA, when you would have multiple sources of income when you're older, such as pension, Social Security, maybe investments and potential forced withdrawals with regards to required mandatory distributions, otherwise known as RMDs. Adam, any comments on that one?
Those are case by case. So we need to kind of delve deeper in looking at the whole picture. And that's the unfortunate response to a lot of the questions is, yeah, there's a general answer, but we need to know more about the plan, see what else you have. Are we married? Are we not? How old are we? How close are we to retirement?
Yeah, I would say to William, if you haven't done any retirement planning, it sounds like you'd be an ideal candidate for that, especially when it comes down to optimizing the portfolio for risk and return. For Jim Piazza, what about utilizing your 401k to offset taxes by direct distributions to qualified charities? Adam, do you have any thought on that?
I mean, that depends a lot on tax bracket. Does it make sense? All of these are awesome questions that, as part of the financial plan, we would certainly be able to answer. But we need to make sure we get a plan in place. Alex, I'm sure you would agree with that.
Agreed. And just in regards to the taxes on charitable contributions, just remember that those rules did change at the end of last year, and they
Yes.
have been dramatically reduced for people who have high adjusted gross income. So that is a question that would be answered differently in, say, December than it would be in January. Bobby Lee asked, how can I contribute to retirement while lowering my income, my taxable income? It depends on whether you invest in a 401k plan or a deferred compensation plan at work, or whether your spouse does. There are rules about that. Again, I'm happy to answer that question offline. Maribel Wallace asks, can you please also send me the income limits for IRA and what if you contribute but are
I
outside
have
those?
that.
Adam, you're on that.
Yeah,
Renee
I will.
Inlow. Okay, Adam will send that out. Renee Inlow asks, what is considered too much to be 457 tax deferred accounts considering tax implications when RMD begins? Again, I think, Adam, you'd agree that's specific to the individual because it depends on your other sources of income, including your spouse or deceased spouse, or there's many ways, many income sources need to be considered in that question. Christian Blasco asked, what about Roth 457? They also offer them in the county. Adam, I think you've got a slide on Roth versus IRA, so that may be coming up. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. I know there's a few more just to keep us on target.
Yeah.
Let's continue.
Christine Hicks asks, any recommendations on paying down principal on a home mortgage versus paying more into investment accounts? Adam, my point on this is that if you refinanced your mortgage at the bottom of COVID at 3.25%, you want to look at the relative return that you might expect on a tax deferred account. But again, that comes down to overall ability to max out your 401k plan or other retirement plan without impinging on your cash flow needs. Karen Grog asks, are there new rules about purchasing, I guess, real estate in your retirement account or with those funds? There are. I think that's beyond the scope of this presentation, but there are ways that you could do that. Tommy asks, what do you think about low fees or IULs, Index Universal Life Insurance? Adam, this is your wheelhouse. You can answer that question for Tommy.
So I love the idea of, I don't distribute life insurance, familiar with, obviously work for a life insurance company. I like life insurance as part of the plan. It's the only tax-free death benefit out there, right? With less capital up front, it is a phenomenal, holistic part of the plan. Just like mutual funds, some cases annuities, right? Structured notes, all of these go into the plan. But I love, if I can find something that has no fees or low fees, okay, you got my attention. You immediately got my attention. So I like it, but there's a lot of other options that are out there. So I definitely like life insurance as part of the plan, something with a low cost investment structure, but I definitely do not want it as a core holding. I want to be able to be nimble in my approach to be able to get out of something. I don't want to be locked into it for too long. Hopefully that helps.
Great. Eric asks, I have a 401k with a previous employer just sitting there doing its thing. Do you recommend leaving it, rolling to my current 401k or rolling it into a Roth IRA or something else? Adam, do you want to take that or do you want me to answer that?
Fire away. That one.
So first off, remember, folks, when you're dealing with IRA to IRA, Roth to Roth, traditional 401k to IRA, and Roth 401k to Roth IRA, you have to keep them separated because one's pre-tax and one's post-tax, and they have different rules in terms of required mandatory distribution. Remember, Roth accounts do not require any mandatory distribution, and there are benefits to the beneficiaries of that Roth IRA. The traditional IRA account, you have to start taking RMDs, and if you are taking RMDs and you pass away, your beneficiaries, per the Secure Act 2.0, will need to take those, continue to take those distributions. Again, to Adam's point, the government wants their pound of flesh. With regards to rolling over 401k plans, I think there's some education that needs to transpire there. It's not a blanket yes, no answer. Unfortunately, it's one of those 50 shades of gray. I think when people make the consideration, the general thoughts are, how's it being managed? What are the investment options? What is the cost? And then what's the opportunity cost? And I think that when you sort of look at them side by side and sort of identify what your goals are, the answers become somewhat clearer. So again, it depends, but there is an algorithm to follow through on that. Jorge Fernandez from Santa Cruz County. Welcome, Santa Cruz. Jorge asks, can you touch on spousal IRA? Adam, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, do you should I continue in the process? Because I will hit on spousal
Okay.
IRA and some options that you have.
Okay,
Do you mind?
we'll come back to that then.
Good.
Just in the essence of time. Heather
Okay.
710, what is considered a low fee? I'll let Adam answer that as well later. Jim Piazza asks, I was referring to qualified charitable distributions of QCD from my IRA to avoid taxes on the back end. Is this a good way to avoid taxes? I'll come back to that. The simple answer is I don't
That's a great
know,
question.
but a great
Yeah.
question. Adam Aiken asks, I joined late. Can we schedule one-on-one meetings with someone to discuss retirement planning? Yes, Andrew, you can speak with either me or Drew Torvend. We're both very qualified and happy to help you out. We've got a whole team of folks that will answer your questions, and we're happy to do basic financial planning for SEMA employees as well. Andrea Turnbull, again, Santa Cruz. Hey there. Can we finish the slides? I'm concerned we will not finish the presentation. Okay, let's continue.
All right, I'll continue. So one of the things in looking at some of the opportunities is understanding real basics here with this, is understanding what rollover is versus a transfer. I get questions all the time. I only have 60 days to do this. I have left a previous job. It's going to get stuck there. I only have 60 days. And the way to actually interpret this is if I'm going from, right, I left my old job, I started a new job, and I want to transfer out my 401k. If I transfer it and I'm going from where the assets are held, let's say they're at Fidelity and I'm moving over to Prudential. Once it's one company transferring it directly to another company, there is no 60-day requirement. And you can do this frequently as you want, right? It's very portable to do institution to institution. Where people run into issues is that same Fidelity 401k. Well, they send me a check, right? FBO Adam, this is my account. They send it to me. Well, I cash it. Then I have 60 days. Can only do that once every 365 days. And then, of course, there might be some tax withholdings that occur in that standpoint. So I would encourage you, if this is something that you're planning on doing, you have to have a conversation with a financial advisor, right? You don't want to make that mistake. Too many times I see that, and then you really can't unwind it once you do it. So it's always best send money from one company to the other company. I always like to address that because I see that all the time. And one of the bigger opportunities in repositioning assets to another account is I look at my 401k. I have very limited options. Okay, now I'm not 59 and a half, so I'm kind of stuck here. I don't really have too much investment flexibility. But if, God forbid, something ever happened, you better believe this is going to be the first thing that I look at doing upon either a separation from service, right? You need a triggering event, such as a separation from service or the attained age of 59 and a half. Some companies have the ability to reposition at age 55. You have to check within the plan documents, but that is absolutely an opportunity because I have the ability to create not just an estate plan opportunity, I have more investment selections. And I think a bigger opportunity, and this was one of the questions, is spousal IRAs, so that my spouse can inherit my income uninterrupted. And there's a lot of products and solutions in the marketplace that can do that for you with those opportunities. So going through distribution mistake, again, just hitting on where I have an issue is if I take out money too soon, right? If I take a distribution prior to a triggering event, I'm still within the plan, that's when I'm going to have a penalty. There are certain exceptions to this rule now with Secure Act 2.0. First-time home buyer, I have access to it. Death or disability, of course, educational expenses. Now remember, this is one of the last assets that you want to touch, because if I do take a distribution, there is a 10% penalty and taxable on the distribution. So we want to make sure our tax deferred money is the last thing we have to take. And especially if it's something that is growing tax deferred at low cost, we really don't want to disrupt that compounding of the growth there. So just be aware of what it is that we're doing, and we want to really weigh out all the options. So forgive my typo. That's supposed to say retire. So there will be a prompt on the screen momentarily. When do you expect to retire? So ideally, are we looking at what I call the retirement red zone? And what do I mean by the retirement red zone? Good football analogy. Am I within the next 20 yards of retirement, and I'm towards the end? Am I only a couple of years away? Am I at the goal line? I don't know. So I see some of you are closer to retirement, 1 to 5 years. That's amazing. 6 to 10 years out, 11, 50. We're all over the board. And never. Whoever responded never, I love that response. I'm right there with you.
And Adam, pardon me for interrupting. I did want to add, a lot of people on this call may be in the situation where they'll take retirement from the county, but go on to an encore career. So I'm not sure if you're covering both or purely retiring and not doing, going on a beach kind of a thing.
We're talking. So when I think of retirement, I mean, I probably going to do something else, right? So the majority of second careers actually happen after the age of 59 and a half. So, and that's kind of what we're looking at. Now, fully retire, we're talking, 75 plus maybe, but my conversation is, hey, I'm probably leaving my current work environment where I'm at today. What do I do with the money? And how do I best position that going forward? So that's what we're talking about. And then things to be on the lookout for down the road. And I call them mile markers. So that's certainly what we're looking at. So again, financial presentation, some items that will make you seem smart at a trivia event. I like to go over some items that you might hear in the news. You might hear quite frequently about corrections, okay? Corrections is an important word, a 10% drop from the peak. But what is very infrequent is a 20% loss from a market peak. So that is considered a bear market. Now, what's not displayed on the screen, the 19.5% number, we actually hit 19.5% far more frequently. We've had 19.5% drops 32 times over the last 50 years. So it happens quite a bit. It happened in last year in Q1, right? It happened in 2015. It happens very frequently. You just don't see it in a full year. But once we get to 20, that's why that number is so important once we break that threshold. So you can expect to see a 20% drop in the market. If I'm 65 years old today and I'm planning on retiring and being retired, I need to plan for at least 5 during that time frame. So what's the average bear market loss? It's right around 30%. Here's where I start to challenge some of the data. Yeah, we're going to see quite a few. And how long does the average bear market last? This is where I challenge some of the data. 11 months. That means I buy a share of stock at 10. I need it to go, and it goes down to 8, okay, a 20% drop. I need $2 a share to catch back up. That's a 25% return. Historically, that's 11 months. I would argue within the last decade, that number has shrank dramatically. And I think that's just the amount of information that is accessible to us is more like a COVID quick correction. Very similar to what we saw in Q1 of last year, where a very quick correction, we are not just reporting earnings, but we have an idea of what's happening. So historically, yes, 11 months for you to catch back up. But I do think you'll see much more V-shaped recoveries. 2000, 2001, 2002, where you have 3 consecutive years, I don't see that happening, knock on wood, of that playing out, right? Where you don't have that much information traveling that fast. But so I think it's important to understand some of the other speed bumps along the way, because when we're talking about a retirement plan, here's the first thing you have to think of. What am I going to spend? And I want you to mentally do this. And this is part of the method to our madness by asking these questions, because I'm genuinely curious. As part of the retirement plan, am I ready for retirement? I would argue, when do you need income? And when I mean income, what am I going to spend from my account? When do I fully expect I can work part-time somewhere else? I can have other things that I like to, heck, I can drive Uber. But if I'm withdrawing, I'm reverse dollar cost averaging, I'm on the other side of the retirement mountain, I'm not accumulating a pile, I'm distributing from that pile. What do I take? And this is something that has been going on for decades, is what number do I take? So again, envision this. I want you to add up mentally in your head all the statements you have, million, 2 million, 3, whatever you have. What do you need, right? And where are you going to live? You're going to stay in California, you're going to move to Nevada, right? What are we doing? And the reason why this is important is because we are so far off from consumers as we are on financial planning consultants. Because what we think we need, well, I'll take 7-8%. So if I got $1 million, 70, 80 grand a year should be enough. That's not what the experts say. And are we coming in on retiring from one IRA in the household, but there's two of us, right? Supporting two lives. Also an important item. That all part of the financial plan. So here's why this is important. This was actually created in the original concept, created by a small little school in Boston, Harvard, that created this idea of what should I take. Now, things are a little different in the 70s, where the concept was 4% was safe, but success was you're not eroding principal. Now, when you're getting 18% on cash, probably an easier way to park money and not have to worry about running out. Now, that changed in the mid-90s. That changed because 4% was now considered successful if you had $1 left in the account. Now, what I don't know is I don't know the second date on your tombstone, right? If we're going to create this perfect financial plan, if you can tell me that to the number, we'll tell you when to retire and how much to take. But we don't know that information. So we're going off of longevity. Things have changed, right? We're living longer, but interest rates have changed dramatically. Where to park safe money has changed dramatically. Think about bond funds, right? We were coming out of a 30-year bond bull market. So stocks being risky, the older I get, the more conservative I get. I generally lean towards fixed income to support, so I don't have to really worry about taking a distribution. Withdrawal, this is a yearly distribution. So we're saying right now, today, how this has changed, what experts are saying is 2.7%. And I kind of scoff on that. You can't take 2.7%. That's just not enough, right? We haven't saved enough, but that's to ensure success with a moderate portfolio. Yes, it's an annual percentage. That is correct in the question chat. Annual percentage of the portfolio. And if I were to distribute 3% of my portfolio, sure, I probably won't run out of money with a normal retirement lasting 30 years. That's what we're saying. Okay. So take that with a grain of salt. But I'm curious. Have you started? A lot of you are curious. Let's get the party started. But how many of you have started the retirement planning process? There's a chat pop up here.
Is this going to be a quick? Oh,
There we are. Overwhelming yes. Good. And I'm expecting that. And again, have we started and done any retirement planning? Thinking about it, sure, that works. Right. I do go to church, and hope and pray is part of my strategy, but not for retirement planning. I would encourage you a written plan. More than anything else, a written plan in place. Far more effective to have it in writing. You update it accordingly and make sure you are following that plan. Life changes. Your retirement plan should adjust with it also, but this is one of the most important things. We plan for how long for that vacation? That's going to last for a week. We should be planning more for the 30-year vacation that we're going to take. So understandably, we have an important item in place, but here's something I also need you to understand. We talked about a safe withdrawal rate of 2.7%. This is why this conversation is so important. A required minimum distribution is required. I can't not take it. This is what's been pushed back a little bit. It is suggested that not only are you going to take distributions at the age of 73, it actually increases every year. We're showing just a snapshot of every couple of years what it is. An IRA, folks, is supposed to disinherit your spouse. It's supposed to disinherit your family. Nobody likes that, but that is the design of it. It's qualified money. It's pre-tax money. You are supposed to pass away with nothing left in it, which is why planning for required minimum distribution is one of the hardest things financial advisors have to do, because this is an asset that is going to distribute. So there are, of course, calculations and numbers in place to kind of factor in what your plan would look like. Alex is an expert at doing that as part of the plan. But I need you to understand a required distribution is meant to go up. So how are you planning for that? Okay. And as the majority of wealth out there, what are we going to do? And how are they designated? This is one of the most important things that you can do, is review your beneficiary designations. One of the most important things, not just on your IRAs, but on all accounts. We have a habit of naming trust as beneficiaries for everything. We do not want to name a trust as beneficiary on a retirement account. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure it's going to an individual, right? Far less of a tax burden and issue on the plan and family if we make sure it's going to an individual. But I want to give you an alarming stat. Prudential, I don't have to go over the numbers with you. You've heard how large our company is. That's fantastic. But nearly $1 trillion in assets. And this is the sad part, is about 5% of our death claims, again, on $1 trillion, a lot of money, 5%, the beneficiary of assets is to a former spouse, meaning no longer married. You can't fix that after you pass away. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to update and review beneficiary designations after life event. This is something that should be a part of the plan unequivocally all the time, all accounts with your financial advisor. Sorry to belabor the point on that, but we see it too many times. Now, if you're not aware of this, yes, on traditional accounts, your IRAs will have no end in sight, right? So meaning it's going to go up and up and up every year. And another extra date we are live, awesome, that number is going to increase. So the question I always get naturally, well, what if I convert to a Roth? Well, the benefit of converting to a Roth is, well, I don't have to worry about taking required minimum distributions. But this isn't right for everyone, right? Tax-free income is amazing, right? That's one of the I call compounded interest, the eighth wonder of the world. This is one of the ninth wonder of the world, to be able to take Roth distributions. But this is something that is very important that I would write down. You have to have a conversation with Alex and his team to see if this is right. I would love to be able to tell everyone it makes sense. We got to pay taxes on it now. Does that make sense? Where I do think a tax conversion to a Roth might make sense is in a down market, right? If we're coming off a correction in the marketplace, less value per share, that might be a good opportunity to do so. But it's not right for everyone. The big opportunity is the no RMDs, right? I love having that, especially if we're planning on gifting money down the road to family members, right, to an estate. Part of a conversion might take place. But I do believe in the bucket approach by having different buckets, different tranches, right? Different portfolios that are taxed now, different part of the portfolio that it's income now, even while we're working, right, to take some burden off the household. But there's an opportunity there. We want to make sure we're leveraging that. So we are about to wrap up. We're coming on the end on time. Last polling question here is, hopefully this was helpful, but in the future, so we know, would you be interested in more topics like this? Similar to IRAs, similar to different mistakes. I know we're out of time here. We'll go over some additional questions as awesome. I see this coming in. A lot of the topics we also do is estate planning as well, so something we can put out there. Alex, we want to hit some of the questions in the chat before we conclude.
I think we are losing folks as we round out the hour here. So what I would like to do is say, look, thank you very much, Adam. I think that was a worthwhile
Alex, there's still a
presentation.
couple questions left though, and we still have time. We
We
still
do
have
have
7
time. Right.
minutes.
We'll give it a shot.
Okay.
All right. So I have a question here, one from William, both Roths, but Roths don't have RMDs. Yes, that's correct. Roth IRAs do not require a mandatory distribution, but remember the money goes in, you know, after tax. So that's the reason why there's no requirement of a distribution. Zeb Feldman asked, how are cryptocurrency holdings distributed if the holder passes, and do you build that into plans? The simple answer to that, Zeb, is I don't know. Crypto is still nascent in the financial services industry. And I guess it would depend if someone's actually got a key to your crypto locker. Otherwise, that may go missing and you won't see it again. But that's an interesting question. I'll look into it. Sherry Tahada asks, can pensions extend to beneficiaries, not spouse? Are there different types of pensions where only spouse can collect pension, 401k/453b? I know you can name a beneficiary. I believe that you can name your beneficiaries and a contingent beneficiary if the primary is not around. Adam, do you have a comment on that?
It depends who's running the plan. I mean, usually privately held is different than, General Motors running it versus an insurance company. So within the plan documents, it'll spell out usually the spouse, if listed initially, yes, we'll have access, income continues, but it's usually not on the remaining beneficiary. No lump sum usually, unless it's transferred out.
Laura Jones asks, can you please repeat, a living trust can or cannot be a retirement account beneficiary? Adam, you want to take that one?
Generally, I not in the business of giving advice, but if I'm looking at a trust being the beneficiary of an asset, trust tax rates are significantly higher than individual tax rates. So you are immediately going to be paying much more on the trust. Plus, when it goes into the trust, there's obviously different rules and parameters in place. When it goes to an IRA goes to an individual. The new rules suggest when it goes to an IRA owner, a non-spouse, be very clear, a non-spouse, it now has to be distributed in a 10-year period. So I'm not able to extrapolate that over a lifetime or stretch it like non-qualified money. But if I can alleviate a tax burden and pass on more money, going to an individual is generally a better option. A trust kind of limits us in that capacity.
I'm getting a lot of questions here about one-on-ones. If anyone wants to reach out to me or Drew, you can pass me an email at alex@teodorowealth.com. That's alex@teodorowealth.com. And I've included that in the chat section as well. And Robin is happy to give that to you as well if you need it. Henry Louis asks, estate planning would be nice for the items that are not in retirement plans. Agreed. An estate plan is always important, and don't forget to update it every couple of years. Sweet Torva asks, do you have to have a will and a trust now? You don't have to, but it's highly recommended. And we had a prior educational series on that with Victoria, and she'd be happy to help you out with that. Zeb, you're asking me some great questions. I'm going to have to get back to you on that question. I cannot answer that question. I simply don't know, but I believe you have to use a law firm. We have Okay, I think that's all the questions we have for now. Um, again, oh, William asked a backdoor Roth, assuming you don't have funds in a traditional IRA, but we'll leave Adam to confirm that. Teresa was asking the original questions. What do we do with a Roth IRA after we exceed income limit? Adam, what do you do with a Roth IRA after we exceed the income limits?
Talk to you.
Yeah, typically, if you can't contribute, it becomes somewhat orphaned and it just needs to be invested and optimized for growth or income or both is the bottom line. And circumstances change. I know, just in closing, real quick, first off, thank you very much for everyone. Big shout out to the SEMA members in Santa Cruz and Monterey County, as well as obviously Santa Clara and the Superior Court System. You guys all rock. We totally appreciate everything that you guys have done and continue to do a valuable service in and around the South Bay. Adam and I are always here to help. Drew Torvend is here to help. We've definitely partnered with SEMA. We're happy to go ahead and do one-on-one discussions, including basic financial planning. I think the key takeaway here is make sure that you have a plan of action and make sure that you stick with it. Some of you ask great questions in terms of like, well, we're contributing to CalPERS, we have a 401k, and we have a 457b. Those are all great questions, and they need to be reviewed in a total financial plan, which is what Adam was consistently referring back to, and we're happy to help you out with that. We can actually plot and manage your cash flow needs in a full-blown financial planning report, and it's updated daily, so it's really dynamic versus something that's static. And with that, thank you very much. Robin, do you have any closing comments?
I want to thank everybody for coming. We had well over 400 people, which is very exciting. You did see the survey question about who would like to continue doing these, and you saw it was 100%. There was no no's on that. It was strictly all yes. So we look forward to the next module in this financial training. And thank you to you, Adam, very, very much for stepping in. It was great. And I know it's recorded. A lot of people have asked for recording. If anybody needs to get a hold of Adam, you can reach out to me and I can make sure that I can give you his contact information, his email, and personal cell number. So thanks again, everybody, for coming. And thank you to Adam and Alex for this great presentation.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.